What is going on, everybody? Let's get this camera a little bit more to the center. Welcome to another live episode of the Vitko verdict. We're going to be doing another Iran war update as we've been going through weekly. Kind of a lot to go over, but not really, because we have a lot to go over in the sense of like as soon as we did the last Iran war update, a lot of shit happened within like 24 to 48 hours of that. And then Trump sort of delivers this like half thought out ultimatum sort of thing that he keeps extending the date, pushing the date back. And it's sort of we're not really doing as much strikes ourselves. Israel's still striking very heavily, even on civilian infrastructure. The Gerald Ford, amid the fires that happened inside of the laundry room, which is still yet to be determined if it was caused by just an electrical failure, if it was actually caused by sailors that did not want to be there anymore and they were kind of like revolting, or if it was caused by a drone or missile strike, which the latter seems very improbable. But it did have to redock to get everything fixed, refacilitate, and it should be inactive for about 2 weeks. It's getting replaced by other ships, but they're apparently moving from Asia and their defense positions near Taiwan, which has started putting a strain on the South Asian part, especially because we're taking the THAAD missiles out of Korea, which kind of seems to be pushing South Korea more towards negotiating with North Korea and making peace with them. So we'll see what happens there. It's very interesting geopolitical fallout that's happening from this war that everybody knew would happen except for Donald Trump, who still is claiming that nobody knew they'd close the Strait of Hormuz and there would be global economic fallout from starting a random war in Iran for Israel and without any clear goals or clear statements or even like a real good casus belli to go in there and actually do these strikes. So there's a lot of things that are kind of just up in the air right now. I guess what we'll start by going into first with the war updates is basically as soon as we got done with our stream last week, the first thing that happened is Donald Trump was pleased to report that we won the war again. He's probably stated that we've won this war like 30 times now. That's not even an exaggeration. I'm going to have to get a count by the end of this as how many times he's claimed victory. However, he's now claiming that they were having conversations throughout the week, and he's going to put a halt on all strikes against all the power plants and infrastructure for a 5-day period, subject to these ongoing discussions and meetings. So, what was interesting is as soon as this came out, Iranian media kind of just immediately denies it. They come out pretty quickly and say that Trump was talking to nobody. And then it sort of comes out that no, he was talking to somebody. And what he basically did was give like a 15-point peace negotiation plan to intermediaries in Pakistan. And then they just forwarded it to the government. So they weren't really talking. He just kind of gave it to them. And Iran just allegedly rejects the offer from what they are posting. So this is from Kyle Angelone at the Libertarian Institute. And this is now Iranian state media speaking out with officials who said Tehran has rejected the 15-point peace plan to end the war in the Middle East that was given to them. So at first they were denying the talks were even going on, which is still kind of true because they're not really talking. He just gave them a peace plan to Pakistan. Pakistan gave it to them. They looked at it and said, no. That's the extent of this talk. So this was after so Trump gives the 48-hour deadline to reopen the strait. He then postpones that and says it's 5 days from then that while these negotiations are going on. And now, even more recently, he's extended that 5-day period to a 10-day period. Now, my predictions with all of this, again, this is where I'm speculating, so I don't have any proof, but like there's over 50,000 U.S. troops currently in the Middle East with all the troops that are moving there. If you look at how long it takes to get our new assets that are like coming from like the South Carolina bases all the way out there, as well as Gerald Ford and getting the replacements for our Navy and to move all of our other assets in the region to a strategic point where a ground invasion could be possible, it's going to take 5 to 10 days. And it's strategically, again, when the markets close, he's trying to play the oil markets. So to me, it's a play Trump's trying to do where he's basically trying to fixate on these oil markets, get them to go up, while he's saying, we're not going to strike them. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. And in the background, of course, you have all the assets moving into place. Lots to talk about Karg Island as well. And I kind of think this is part of the play into the ruse. I do not think strategically they're going to go for Karg Island. And the reason I say that is because the way Karg Island's located is just really far up on the strait. There's more islands that are like right when you enter the Strait of Hormuz, where Karg Island's more into the Persian Gulf, that are contested by the UAE, that actually make a lot more strategic sense for them to hold and would be a lot easier for them to get assets to in order to hold. And especially with the UAE sort of like soft backing, as well as Saudi basically telling America not to stop and not to make a peace deal, it seems like they're going to try to claim these contested islands and as their territory and sort of fully annex them in. And that would make the most sense to me. That's my speculation. So all of this talk, again, is just for nothing. They're just trying to get the oil markets to stay steady until we do a full ground invasion. And I'm guessing he's going to try to do a big surgical strike ground invasion of taking these islands and then reopening the strait, and try to do it between like a Friday and a Sunday on the markets closed. So when the markets open back up, we already have full control of the strait, and he's going to try to play that so the oil markets never actually crash and flow of oil continues to the global markets. I do kind of have a feeling it might be in conjunction with other NATO member navies, because they're already kind of mentioning, after Trump was like, hey, we need help, they're like, no. And then he's like, well, we don't use the Strait of Hormuz anyway, so we're just going to leave. Then they're kind of like, okay, maybe we will help, because now if he just leaves, then they're fucked. Like they're not going to have any oil. So it's a big deal. Yeah, so that's my speculation. I think that's what's going on. Obviously, the wars are so unpredictable. We'll have to just see. I hope there's an actual peace deal on the table. So we'll just have to kind of just at the whim of whatever Trump decides, because as he said before, like international law is not what's stopping him. It's his own morality. So whatever that kind of mess means. So we'll go into like an older clip. It's about a week old at this point, because again, we're going weekly update, and a lot of this stuff really happens at the beginning of the week this week. So this is him basically right after this tweet talking about what the tweet was about and who he's talking to. Get that full.
We've wiped out the leadership phase 1, phase 2, and largely phase 3. But we're dealing with the man who I believe is the most respected and the leader. It's a little tough. We've wiped out everybody.
Is that the Supreme Leader?
No, not the Supreme Leader. We don't. Well, nobody's ever.
So it's already, I believe we're talking to the guy in charge. We wiped out almost everybody. It's hard to tell. Mentality of like, who's he talking to? Nobody knows. He could literally just be talking to some dude in his basement with an Iranian accent at this point. I don't think anybody actually knows who he's talking to. Don't think he does. I think he's just talking to random people in Pakistan who say they can get him messages into Iran. And I think half of these messages aren't being received or just flat out rejected.
Nobody heard of the second Supreme Leader, the son. Nobody. We have not heard from the son. Every once in a while you'll see a statement made, but we haven't. We don't know if he's living. But the people that seem to be running it, and they seem that based on really fact, because things they've said have taken place.
So that's it. The people he believes are running it, which is now based on fact, because the things that they've said have taken place. Which means I could run Iran, because everything that I've said is going to happen, if you look at my past episodes, have taken place. So does that mean I run Iran now? Who knows? Like, as long as you can accurately predict what's been happening, which anybody can kind of do, because it's been pretty easy to see. Like, if you're not absorbed into the mainstream media, which he is, unfortunately, like I don't think he's getting anything other than like Fox News fed to him. and all the war hawks and all the Israeli talking points. So I don't think he even knows what's going on, to be honest. I think anybody watching this podcast will genuinely know what's going on in the war more than President Donald Trump does. Like, I'm actually being serious. The only thing that is being reported that he's getting fed to him every single day in his briefings are just videos of us blowing up shit from the fucking jets, which looks cool and is what we're doing. We're just blowing shit up. So to him, he just sees that and he sees, oh, we're winning. And then anytime he goes on social media and sees all the other people talking about like how we're not winning, or like any of these other, like, let's say a New York Post or anything, a New York Times, they report on something that's negative that's happening about the war, like innocent civilians dying or our bases just being completely obliterated in Bahrain and Kuwait and Bahrain. And anytime that gets reported, he's calling it fake news, because I think he genuinely thinks it's fake news, and like he only gets this positive spins on every single thing that he sees. I don't know. I really do think it is something like that. So we'll have to see. But what other things that happened interesting was, and was barely a sentence, but whatever. We've been, as this war's been going on, we're starting to bomb sites in Iraq, specifically the PMF, which is like a Shiite Muslim militia that is still part of Iraqi security forces. There's been multiple attacks, strafing runs by A-10s, videos that have been coming out, and they're just devastating PMF bases. And the problem is it's stirring things up in Iraq, where the Iraqi government has now cleared the PMF to defend itself from deadly strikes on them after the militia headquarters. So we're going to go to this story. This one is going to be from Drop Site. So Iraq clears the PMF to defend itself after deadly strikes on militia headquarters. And there is some videos of like the headquarters. Of course, it's just explosions, and I don't want to show anything too graphic because there could be people exploding in these videos. So this is basically now adding more fuel to the fire, because it's not only just Iranian militias, and before it was Hezbollah, Ash'ara, the Houthis, that were kind of worried about entering this war. People say Hamas, but Hamas is not actually an Iranian proxy, so they're not as worried. But we are seeing a lot more settler activity and in that West Bank go on, which we will start to cover a little bit. But that's what they were really worried about, is the true Iranian proxies starting to come up and declare war. And we'll get into that because they have. But the PMF is not an Iranian proxy. They're just a Shiite militia group within Iraq. And the fact that they're now being cleared to defend themselves and they're continuously being bombarded, I can't say if it's by Israel or from the United States. It's hard to tell since they're joint operations and we basically have the same munitions because we give them everything. But it's really escalating this war into a very dangerous spot. So we did mention the Houthis, which is also known as Ansar Allah. They have officially entered the war and declared war on the United States and Israel. So we will just kind of watch the declaration of war clip, even though it is in subtitles. Let's see. I'll actually need it. So it's basically the resistance front on they're calling out Hezbollah fighting, and they're calling out what's happening in the West Bank and the Palestinians. They're also mentioning now Iraq because of the PMF. And now Yemen is basically saying that Israel is going to be a valid target. They are openly declaring war. They have not said that they're going to close the Red Sea, but there's a chance. And they have actively began shooting ICBMs alongside Iran and alongside Hezbollah into Israel. Now, this is not getting reported on very much because there is a media blackout going on in Israel. So they're trying to really the death toll in Israel, I have no idea what it is. And we're not going to not talk about that because there's a civilian death toll there we're not talking about it not because we don't want to. We're not going to talk about it because they're not releasing numbers. They're not telling us. And we have no idea. It's pretty scary going on. And for anybody living in Tel Aviv as of right now as well, if you're a civilian, and same with anyone in the West Bank, with Lebanon, like the whole entire area is starting to really destabilize. So we went over what's gone on in Lebanon, as they're basically saying anything south of the Litani River, everybody has to leave. They're fully trying to annex that. They are still getting shot at by Hezbollah. They've actually have been getting resisted pretty heavy from Hezbollah. So from my understanding, they're not just easily marching into Lebanon. They're under heavy resistance. And there's a lot of stories that the IDF is under a potential collapse because they're trying to call up all of their troops, and not everybody wants to go and invade Lebanon because it's not a pretty fight. There's also reports ground invasion from the U.S. is not going to include the ground troops from Israel, as they are going to focus more on Lebanon. So as we're gearing up to put boots on the ground and United States soldiers in Iran for this war that mainly benefits Israel a lot more than it benefits us, Israel's not going to commit any ground troops, and they've already stated that they are not going to commit any ground troops. It's going to be for Lebanon. So it's interesting. I don't see where this off-ramp really is at this point, because if you look at everything that's going on, I really don't think that the trouble from a ceasefire is going to be getting Iran to the table. I really think it's going to be getting Israel to stop firing at Iran and to get Israel back in check. Because to be honest, if we did just end this war and pull out right now, Israel would not stop the war. Israel would still go into Lebanon. They would still be bombing Iran for sure. And they would still be allowing the settlers to go into the West Bank and just do whatever the hell they want. And that's part of the stipulations of what Iran says, that they not only want all U.S. bases out of the Middle East, they want Israel out of Lebanon completely, and they want the settlers out of the West Bank and Gaza. And because that will never happen, there's not any off-ramp in sight for this war. Until Trump can somehow get the Israelis in check, I don't think this war is going to end anytime soon like he's saying it is. I think he's just been saying this over and over to keep these oil markets down. And as soon as something crazy happens, the oil market's going to shoot up. We'll get to that 200 a barrel that the Iranians are looking for. And it'll all be kind of for nothing. Everything that's been going on is just going to get reversed. I think Glenn Greenwald made a really good point with this while I'm talking about the Iran barrels of oil. So right now, Trump is easing the sanctions on not only Russia, but Iran, allowing them to sell them to the oil that they've been holding. So it's basically, from my understanding, there's a bunch of oil on cargo ships that is known as sanctioned oil. And he's allowing them to sell the already packaged up oil on the ships to go to the markets in order to try to, stabilize the economy. But essentially, it's just giving the Iranians $14 billion. A lot of people always like to point out, this is what Glenn Greenwald is talking about right here, that the most consistent VMS complaint about Obama is him releasing the $1.7 billion to Iran, which is what they would say Obama was just giving cash to Iran. He was just giving them money. It was just giving them money. However, that's not what happened. We sanctioned their money and we released the funds to them as part of the deal. So that we're just giving back the money that we sanctioned. Trump is now lifting $14 billion in sanctions. And his excuse was, well, how are they going to get the money? We don't even know if they're going to get the money. Who says they're going to even get that money? Like, you know what I mean? So his whole entire excuse is like, oh, I understand it's bad and I get we are funding them, but I don't think they're even going to be able to get that money. So we're fine here. So there's no way they can actually figure out how to get the money over there, right? Like, it's you know, it's kind of just laughable. Because it's just like, what if they do figure out how to get the money? I don't know. Like the whole entire hinging your whole bet on like they won't be able to figure it out, and let's just give them all of this extra cash. And again, I still see people talk about it today that Obama gave Iran endless cash, and that's why he wasn't good on Iran. Because I always say like one of the only things he did that was good was the JCPOA, and like his foreign policy was horrible in every single other country except Iran. But people are like, well, he gave them all this money. That's why they listened to him. He just gave them everything. But he didn't. Like that's not what happened. And now Trump is actively giving them like 10 times more. So it's interesting. Another interesting. We won't jump too far in the future yet. We'll stick on Iran. We have a lot of updates going on with past couple days. Let's see. This is March 26th, and I thought this was like kind of a funny one. This is JD Vance stating that the Iranians could have nuclear suicide vests.
The American people know options for what? And it's options to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. You talk about people who walk into a crowded supermarket and have a vest on, and they blow up the vest and a couple of people get killed, and that's a terrible tragedy. What happens when what's on the vest is not something that can kill a couple of people, but can kill many, many tens of thousands of people? That is the most important American national security objective that exists for any administration at any time, is you don't want the worst people in the world to have a nuclear weapon. That's why the president is doing this. That's why the president cares so much about this particular issue. When I say...
So, I mean, I guess nobody explained to JD Vance that, you know, a suicide nuke vest is actually logistically impossible, and there is no nuclear warhead that is small enough to just detonate on somebody's vest that will kill tens of thousands of people. Like that's just retarded. We just gotta say it. Like anybody who actually thinks that like what he said there was genuine and that could happen is fucking retarded, and you should have no say in what goes on in any war because you're a fucking retard. Like it's just like theoretically, I guess you can make a dirty suicide vest bomb and just put like nuclear material and radioactive material that could fly off it, but you're not killing tens of thousands of people. You're not having a nuclear explosion. You're not having a nuclear fall. That's logistically impossible. So what he's saying, on top of being retarded, is impossible. And it's not retarded because it's impossible. It's just also retarded because it's retarded. It's just no. I don't understand how like you can be the vice president of the United States. You have like all of these people, right? Any speeches give you all this information, and like that's what you're coming out with. Like you can see like they're just trying to throw shit at the dartboard. Anything that sticks is what they're gonna go with. So it's like it's hard. It's not good to laugh at things like this because like there's actively just civilians dying. We're committing so many war crimes. We're threatening even more war crimes, which we'll get into it. But like the fact that they're like our government's just this fucking stupid, and they think that you're this fucking stupid that they can say this shit, and there's somebody somewhere that's watching Fox News that's eating that shit up, is just bewildering to me. Honestly, it is just bewildering to me. So let's go to this clip of Trump, which was I don't know. It's just funny. Let's just watch it.
But they're doing it for two reasons. Number one is they want to deflect from all of the tremendous success that we're having in this military operation. I won't use the word war because they say if you use the word war, that's maybe not a good thing to do. They don't like the word war because you're supposed to get approval. So I'll use the word military operation.
Again, like it's just so laughable. Like he's acknowledging that it's a war and it's illegal and you need congressional approval, but as long as he doesn't call it a war, just calls it a military operation. They don't like when I use the word war. It's good. So I guess another thing while we're talking about non-congressional approval, because everybody's kind of getting fear-mongered on the draft, and I understand that the draft is a scary thing. I just hope that like we don't get to a point where people are getting drafted for boots on the ground without a congressional declaration of war. Although I guess technically we did in Vietnam because the Congress did not declare war in Vietnam. Either way, it would just be such an escalation. And like I just don't really think that it's going to happen like that. I think that it's on the table for just the fact of them not taking it off the table for the geopolitical point of view. So the Iranians and other adversaries think that we will just draft people if we feel like we need to and take them on. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't even think as I said before, they have 50,000 troops already in the Middle East. I do not think all of them are going to be used. I think maybe 5 to 10,000 to take the small islands that are contested by the UAE. That's my prediction of like the vastness of the scale and an attempt to just kind of like push the strait open. And again, I keep saying the strait open. The strait's never been closed. What they've essentially done is turn it to like a toll booth, and they have some sort of ticket system where if you give them $2 million in Chinese yuan, you can get a slip that allows you to pass through the strait. And they are letting anybody who pays that strip or anybody who's already just going to China or anywhere else non-related to Israel and US, non-allied with Israel and US, they are letting them pass. So saying that the strait is closed is wrong. It's not closed. It's open for everybody except US and Israel and their allies. And there's a toll. Iran's getting very, very rich off of this. It's been a very bad miscalculation. Now, Trump, he's not completely incorrect where he's like, well, what are they going to do with all this money? They can have all the money in the world, but they're still sanctioned. So you can't really, you can have all the money in the world if you're sanctioned where you're spending it. Fair, right? Like he's not wrong, but if you feed the machine, which is Russia, China, and all of like the BRICS nations, I think India is now trading directly with Iran too. Like if you're feeding them all of this money, they're gonna give them shit back to build missiles, to build things. Like they're gonna get everything they need from these countries, and we are the only ones that aren't gonna benefit from the economic trades that they're doing. Like it just hurts us, and it hurts the civilian population. It doesn't hurt the governments. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Like these sanctions have always failed. They don't hurt the governments. They punish our trade because we can no longer trade with them. They punish the civilians of that population, and then they force them to trade with the adversaries, which is then used as a future casus belli to go to war, which is like the whole, it doesn't do anything. It's been fucking stupid. Anybody who thinks like sanctions are a good idea is, again, fucking retarded. Like we've had embargoes and sanctions on Cuba since Eisenhower. Since Dwight Eisenhower was the fucking president, we've had embargoes and sanctions on Cuba, and they're still going. Trump had to tighten them even more to make sure they have no energy anymore, and they're literally just having rolling blackouts and people are dying. But that's what he has to do in order to prove to the world that communism's bad and not just let the communist regime fail on its own. It's so stupid because it's like the communists are retarded. They're just going to fail on their own. Let them fail. If you keep like perpetually pushing communism to the point where like they have like, oh, I can point at America and this is the reason why they're going to blame America, rally people around America. And then the people who live under communism aren't going to be like, oh yeah, communism's the reason why we live like this. No, it's America now. So like they keep giving the communist excuses as to why the government doesn't work. So like that's where the miscalculation comes in. Completely have to stop doing that. So we'll go into the deal with Iran. This is just a quick clip from Trump talking about he sees a deal in Iran coming soon.
Sir, could you foresee a deal in Iran this upcoming week?
I do see a deal in Iran, yeah.
Mr. President.
Could be soon.
Sir, could you foresee?
And that was it. Could see
I do see a deal in Iran.
And it could be soon. Iran's not saying the same thing. This is where it's getting interesting because it's like, if Iran's not making the deal, who are you making the deal with? Like, that's the whole thing we want to know. And then 3 hours ago today, this is where we're going to get into some more recent stuff. He's still claiming the deals are going on and talks are happening. The United States of America is in serious discussions with a new and more reasonable regime to end our military operations in Iran. So he's already, because they've killed so many people, he's saying we got regime change. It is a new regime. The people we're talking to want to work. Great progress has been made. But if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, and if the Strait of Hormuz is not immediately open for business, which it is open for business, just not to American and Israeli allies, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electrical generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Islands, and possibly desalination plants, which we have purposely not touched yet. Every single thing he named, generating plants, oil wells, you can maybe not Karg Island, but especially the desalination plants, destroying all of those is a blatant war crime. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just a straight up war crime. You cannot just destroy civilian infrastructure because you feel like it. Like, that's what the definition of a war crime is. So he is threatening more war crimes. We've already committed many. Again, Trump already went on record saying America can't commit war crimes and the international law does not pertain to him, and only his own morality is what lets him stop things. So yeah, he's still threatening war crimes. Which is just insane. So this will be retribution for our many soldiers and others that Iran has butchered and killed over the old 47-year regime of terror. Yeah, because again, they haven't done anything within the past 4 decades that we have to keep going back in time in order to justify a war that's happening in 2026. Like, you have to keep putting that in perspective. Like, anytime he's trying to say we have to destroy this regime, he has to go back to the 80s of when they actually attacked us, and then won't tell you why they attacked us. He just makes it sound like in the 80s they hate America and they came after us. So like it's just actual stupidity. It gets to the point where it's like we're being ran by morons, and it's just more and more obvious every day. So this is another interesting development in a way. So we had Donald Trump on Truth Social, his own social media program, tell everybody, watch Mark Levin interview of the brilliant Mark Thiessen tonight at 8 on Fox News, and we'll discuss the importance of hitting Iran. Well, in this interview, which was
troops on the ground, he said,
by Drop Site Media, Mark Levin starts giving justification for troops on the ground. Coincidence? You can decide. Let's watch.
Troops on the ground. He said ground. I don't remember that in any campaign speech either. But why would we need troops on the ground? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and we wouldn't need 300,000 of them. It's this uranium, too. We've got to get the uranium. If it cannot be destroyed, if it cannot be altered, we got to get it for the reason I just said.
Okay. I'll break this down right here for you, why he's already stupid. Number one, the plant that was obliterated, we're not saying that that Trump obliterated all the uranium, because when he claimed that he obliterated the whole nuclear program before, obviously everyone knew he was stupid. It's still stupid. That didn't happen. What did happen is they obliterated the plant that could convert the fuel rods from a gaseous form back into a metal rods, which you need for the nuclear weapon. We have no idea if the uranium's in gaseous form at all. We have no idea what form it is. We have no idea if it's 235, 238. He has no idea what the fuck I'm even talking about. He just knows uranium bad, make bomb. If the uranium's in gaseous form, they have no infrastructure to make it turn back into a metal and create the rods, which means it's like literally physically impossible for them to create a nuclear weapon. And the reason we know that is because even our own DNI has said that if they attempted to make a nuclear weapon and rebuild all of the plants, they would not be able to even get close to a weapon until 2035 because of how much damage these plants have taken. So it's like you can take their uranium's useless. The uranium at this point can only be used for civilian nuclear program. Like, unless like you're that scared they're going to rebuild their entire infrastructure to convert the fuel back into rods. Okay, again, that's 2035. So why do we need to ground invasion today? He doesn't know what I'm talking about. I guarantee if you asked him if it was 235 or 238 that the uranium they had, he would be like, what? It's uranium. What are you talking about numbers for? Because these guys have no idea. They're just mouthpieces for the CIA and for the State Department. And he is propagandizing our grandparents right now to try to go to this war. That's literally his entire job. And he's lying.
You can make dirty bombs, and over time you can still make sophisticated missiles. So you need to get to the uranium. That's why I'm reading in the paper, we're talking about the 82nd Airborne, we're talking about these various special forces and the various military services and so forth. He's not talking about sending regular army and infantry in by the hundreds of thousands. The men he's talking about, the units he's talking about, they are specialized. And you know what else? I remember from my days in the Reagan administration. Many of them are trained for a moment like this to try and secure enriched uranium. Many have been trained for moments like this.
Yep, just more war propaganda selling you this war. And it's just like when they speak, you can see like the uneducation of what they're saying. Like he's obviously just reading the prompter. Somebody wrote it for him from some type of State Department head. It's like, it's just, it's so obvious. And it's just like, it sucks that that's who like propagandizes the masses of like most of the people who actually vote of voting age, like our grandparents and those people who vote every single time because they have nothing better to do. Like those are the people that like are falling for this, and they just like the breakaway from the mainstream media is happening. It's just not quick enough. I mean, I was hoping by at the end of 2024, like that was it. But it seems like now they're trying to make this resurgence of the mainstream media, but they're just trying to make it all pro-Trump. Like the whole problem with the mainstream media before was it was just too Democrat, and that wasn't the fucking problem. It's not that one's too Democrat, one's too Republican. It's that y'all just lie and propagandize and just feed bullshit and peddle bullshit. So like until they stop peddling bullshit, it doesn't matter how many times they can just change their setup to make it look like they're doing a podcast. Like no one's gonna watch that shit. And it's just, that's where you got to stop the like Mark Levin propaganda. Like that's where it's over. Like you need to just tell the truth, give us some factual information, and people will watch you. It's like that's like the whole reason everyone's turning away from mainstream media. So another thing, I guess, while we're still on Iran, I guess the last little piece before we talk, because that's about it. It's about all that's been happening past week. As I said before, it was kind of a little slow, which is a good thing because everything's slowing down, but it's more of because I think the assets are moving into place. He's giving these weird ultimatums. I don't think it's a sign that the war is actually gearing down, unfortunately. I actually think it's the opposite. I think this is a sign that it's really about to ramp up and escalate. So the IRGC is now condemning a Kuwait desalination strike. It is accusing Israel of doing this. The unconventional and illegitimate attack by the Zionist regime's army on the desalination facilities in Kuwait reflects the depravity of the Zionist occupiers. The IRGC condemns this inhumane act and declares that the U.S. bases and personnel, as well as military and security centers in the Zionist regime and the occupied Palestinian territories, are within the range of powerful strikes. So this is coming after, PMF and anywhere near Shiite like villages is getting struck by. They're saying it's Israel. There's no proof of that. It might be America. There's no proof either way. It's both of us at the same time. This is really drawing towards pushing the PMF into this war. I really do think at this point, PMF is probably going to join in and help expel a ground invasion if it happens with the Iranian force. Iranian state media claims they have over 1 million ground forces waiting for an invasion. Now, of course, these numbers always include all of their militias, any Shiite militia, which they're including numbers from the PMF, including numbers from Hezbollah, Ash'Allah. So it's like millions. I think they actually have like 400,000 like in Iran based off IRGC numbers. So I wouldn't actually expect there to be like physically a million troops waiting at the border of Iran. Because if they did, that would be a problem. Like America only has 500,000 troops total right now through all the reserves. Everything gets called up. So like, 500,000 versus a million, they got home field advantage. Do the math. That's not actually what's going to happen. That's not true. It's spread out. These are the propaganda numbers. So it's just interesting though, because it does, with UAE escalating and Saudi Arabia not de-escalating but escalating, saying no, don't stop bombing, keep doing this, we need this regime out. It's not looking like it's going to end anytime soon. And then of course, on a little bit more of like an ironic note, here is Raza Falani talking about how his heart aches for the 3 American heroes and 5 wounded by the regime. The Iranian people are forever in their debt. Says nothing about the schoolgirls. Says nothing about any of the people in Iran. And this is the person they expect to helicopter in and run this country. Doesn't say anything about the people that he's attempting to run. He's only talking about Americans and Israelis. Like he's actually, like, it literally is just installing the Shah all over again. Like he's such a puppet for our regime. Like you can't even pretend that it's like not what would be happening. So yeah, that's the war so far. It's been interesting to say the least. We'll have to see. So now, since the delay was 5, so I kind of waited for this stream because the delay was supposed to be 5 days, right? So that delay was supposed to end yesterday. I usually stream this yesterday, but then he declared it for another 10 days. So now it's not this Monday. I think it's next. We'll see. I'm gonna wait probably till then. We'll do a stream and we'll update again and see what happens. I have a feeling it's going to be escalation. I kind of gave you my predictions. We'll see where it goes. I'm glad that it at least got some breathing room. We slowed down on the strikes for a little bit. There's still a lot of civilians being harmed and terror throughout the entire region, not only in Iran, but in Lebanon, but in Israel as well, and even in Saudi, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain. All these countries are being affected negatively. So we just hope this can end sooner than later. I guess we'll do one more clip of Lindsey Graham saying some bullshit. So hopefully y'all didn't eat breakfast yet and you can hold.
What are you going to negotiate Iran with? What I want to do is contain them, take their missile program and keep it blown up. Make sure they can never sprint out to a nuke. Make sure they have no money to support terrorism. Control the island and let them die on a vine, and hopefully the people will rise up. What I'm looking for is defanging Iran so we can move to peace. The Iranian people one day will have ability to take their country back. But we have the best chance in 2,000 years, when Iran is neutralized, for Saudi and Israel to recognize each other in the Arab-Israeli conflict. That is my goal. That is President Trump's goal. 2026 could be the biggest year since 1945 if we neutralize Iran. What are you going to...
Last thing, just the 2,000-year war of... I don't even know what he's trying to say, dude. It's like she has no idea what he's even trying to say. Like 2,000 years of what, dude? Like what battle are you talking about? You talking about like the Romans? Like you're going back to the Romans? What the fuck does the Romans have to do with what's going on now? 2,000 years ago, Islam wasn't even a religion. So like what is he talking about? That's our senator. That's what's going on. And yeah, that's what we're gonna have to deal with. I do, I guess, want to bring some light to what's going on with some of the settlers in the West Bank, because you'll never hear this on mainstream media. A lot of people don't understand that Israeli settlers are now going through in the West Bank and just terrorizing the Palestinians. They burn their crops. They go into their houses. They beat them. And since 2020, there has been absolutely zero arrests of any of these settlers. And it's just kind of heartbreaking to see. I'm not going to go into all the footage because it is just brutal. Very, very elite. This is illegal not only under international law but Israeli law, and they're just not enforcing it. It's very brutal what's going on. This is what's happening. This is what I was kind of getting at last time when I was saying that it's like the Israeli government and then the very extremist like Israeli settlers that give people these anti-Semitic thoughts and give people giving like the Jewish community a bad name. And again, this has nothing to do with the Jewish religion at all. And the fact that they try to hide behind that and use anti-Semitism as a shield is just wrong. It's horrible for all of the innocent Jewish people across the entire world that like may become a target because there's just radical Israeli settlers and radical military operations that's happening in a foreign country that's using the religion as a shield. So it is just gross. And we hope to see an end to it soon. It's going to be hard to get any more film out of it. We actually have
the soldiers' commands.
CNN getting detained and arrested for documenting what's going on in the West Bank. And they're obviously English-speaking CNN reporters. They just do not want people to understand like what's happening. So we'll get it.
Producer Abir Salman identifies us as journalists before translating the soldiers' commands.
Sit down, sit down, sit down.
So the soldiers just immediately came up and started pointing their weapons directly at us, telling everyone to sit down immediately. Obviously, we're not posing any threat here.
The commander comes straight for our camera, and within seconds, a soldier has just put photojournalist Cyril Theophilus in a chokehold, forcing him to the ground.
Don't touch him like that. Don't touch him like that. Give me my phone.
The soldier who assaulted Theophilus continues to demand he turn off his camera before another smacks my phone.
So as you can see, what we have seen happen in the last 24 hours is that settlers came to this area. They settled that hilltop, and now you have a lot of soldiers coming to this area with the Palestinians in this area. They're on top of the home of Imad, the man that we were just speaking to. And we're seeing the soldiers treat the Palestinians in the area as a threat, when really what started this problem was obviously the settlers who came in the middle of the night and took over land that's not theirs.
Yeah, so that's what's going on in the West Bank. The settlers go in, they take the land, the IDF comes in, and instead of kicking the settlers out, they put a perimeter around the settlers to prevent the Palestinians from doing any harm to them. When, if you actually look at historically, the Palestinians are very nonviolent towards these settlers. It's the complete opposite. And they're very nonviolent on purpose because they know as soon as they do any act of violence, then that will count as a ceasefire violation and they will get their house completely leveled. It is not, reciprocal what's happening. I mean, there's no reciprocation at all. These are innocent Palestinians who've been living there for centuries, their family for centuries, and Israeli settlers are coming and just trying to expel them from the land. They're trying to make it so unlivable that they just leave. They want them to leave. They don't want them to never come back, and they want that to become part of Israel. And it's sad that even when Donald Trump says, no, they are not going to occupy the West Bank anymore. No, they need to stop Israel. He even condemned the Israeli settlers. But nothing's being done besides just like a public condemnation. And anyone who tries to even record what's happening, they don't go after the settlers. They're going after the journalists that are recording what the settlers are doing because they don't want it to get out. So we just need to bring a little bit of light on that. There's not much coming out, of course, and there probably won't be. So that's our Middle East kind of update. It's been pretty rough, but I'm hoping that the war will come to an end soon. We're just going to do a little bit of a pivot now. We got another topic. I do kind of want to talk about what's been going on in Cuba. And here we're going to go into a little bit of a Newsmax interview with Ryan Grimm, who works at Drop Site News. And here they're kind of going back and forth of the situation in Cuba. And I think it's important for people to understand. I'm going to try to break this down of like what is happening in Cuba. It is happening simultaneously with this Iran war, so we're not hearing a lot about it. And this has a lot to do with what happened in Venezuela. This is kind of what I talked about at the beginning. I think when I first started my podcast in January, the first episodes I did were on Venezuela. And what I was basically going over and discussing was, even if this is a very successful operation and we don't see this escalate anymore, it's going to give us so much bluster that we're going to immediately invade Iran and immediately invade Cuba. And I even put Colombia on that list. And it looks like Iran already happened. Cuba's next. Colombia, who knows? So it's kind of what's been going on ever since then. All of the oil has been cut off to Cuba. Venezuela has been playing ball. Delcy Rodriguez is basically now just a puppet of the United States. The Venezuela embassy is now, U.S. embassy is reopened. The prisoners that are being held have been released. So there's a lot of good things, honestly. So as much as like I was hesitant and saying, I wrote a whole article. I called it the Libertarian double-edged sword, because I did say like there was a lot of good things that could come from this, but there's so much potential bad from that operation in Venezuela that you got to be wary. And it's so far, Venezuela turned out to be very positive if you only look at what's happening from Venezuela because of it. And and that's a good thing. So we can congratulate or whatever, give our praises to Trump for a successful operation in Venezuela. However, where the criticism comes in is now he's using all of this ego that he built up from that. And it's like, wow, we have such a strong military. He's going to try to do the same thing in Cuba. And he 100% pushed us into a war with Iran. He was not trying to do any of these foreign wars. And then he got a little taste for the strength of our military. And now we're in a full-blown war with Iran. And I did predict that would happen because of this. That's where you got to criticize. Like, you could have left it at that. We could have been good with Venezuela. But now strengthening these, ever since we took in Venezuela, he will not allow any country to sell oil to Cuba. Unless you're selling it to a private company, which means the only companies and only places that are getting anything are like 5-star hotels and like random businesses like that, because as you know, Cuba is a communist country, so their hospitals are state ran, schools are state ran, all their energy infrastructure is state ran. So everything is ran by the state, which means they're allowing oil to go to the hotels that have internet and now have things, but they're not allowing oil to go to the state ran hospitals that have the ventilators, which obviously need the electricity a lot more. And then they use this kind of, we'll watch the clip and break it down, but you can see like people use that as like, oh, well, then why are you staying in all these fancy hotels and you're not staying? It's like, well, because if you as an American go to Cuba, you are literally not allowed to stay anywhere else except these private owned states, because it's a sanctioned country. And if you spend your money, if your money goes to the state at all, you can go to prison. So if they catch you buying anything that goes to the state of Cuba, whether it's from like a food place or whether you're giving money, donating to their hospital, like anything like that counts. Like that's why like they're forced to stay in these hotels that are separate from the state. So it's like, the big thing right now to talk about is Hassan Piker going to Cuba, and he stayed in these fancy hotels and all this. Is like, because he can't stay anywhere else. Like that's all he could stay. His only reason it has energy is because it's not part of the state. Like, it's all like manufactured, and it's not like saying that because I don't want to sit here and act like I'm like justifying and sticking up for Hassan, because I'm not, because like what he says in his streams are really gross too, because he paints the government as this wonderful thing and they do nothing wrong. All the Cuban people are dancing, they're partying, they're having a great time, they love the government and all this, and that's not true either. And it's like you can't just like paint one side of the story and just try to ignore all the bad stuff in the other. Like, you're living under a communist regime and a dictator, and it's not good. There's a lot of bad things that government does. Obviously, there's a lot of bad things we do to them to perpetuate it too. So you just got to point out both and not just like one or the other. So let's get into Ryan Grimm on Newsmax interview about what's going on in Cuba.
I'd imagine. Dropside News reporter Ryan Grimm also traveled to Cuba as well, reporting on all this. He's seen in this photo here. And Ryan joins us tonight, and it's good to have you back on the show. The Trump administration is trying to end a 70-year regime. It looks like these guys, along with you there, are trying to help it survive. Am I missing something?
Wait, they're trying to do what?
Trying to help this regime survive.
Who is?
Piker, most of the people there. I'm wondering if yourself along with them or
So I just want to already stop it because it's like he's already framing it as, so Trump's about to end this brutal regime. Why are you helping it survive when they're going there to, stop the people from starving to death and dying because they don't have electricity, they're on ventilators, they have no food. Like, he's helping the people, not the government. Like, and conflating the people of Cuba with the government is so, like, disgusting, honestly. Like, if you think if you're going to collectively punish the civilians because you don't like the government, then there's like a special place in hell for you if you believe in that kind of shit.
included in that.
Yeah, the group that went along brought about 50 tons worth of medical supplies and solar panels. That's right.
Medical supplies and solar panels, and a lot of sympathies for the regime that controls the country, I imagine.
So let me try to help out your viewers a little bit here.
All right.
How do you feel about the fact that when Americans travel to a foreign country, in this case Cuba, they are told specifically a list of hotels that they are allowed to stay in another country?
I went through it because when I went and stayed there, it was the same. I stayed in an Airbnb. I think if you have,
So
if
what
our
do you
country's
think of
trying
that,
to
though?
squeeze, our
What do you
country's
think-
trying
what
to.
do you think of that?
I think our country's trying to end a regime that's been torturing people for a very long time, and they don't want to fund it.
Well,
they
first
don't
of
want
all-
us funding it by paying money to a communist-owned entity like a hotel.
So if their system of government is so awful, why not just let it fail on its own? Why do we have to blockade them? And how do you
Because they
think,
won't leave. They don't have elections. They won't leave power.
How do you think the United States economy would do if we cut off fuel for 3 straight months? No fuel has basically gotten into Cuba since the Venezuela operation.
Yeah, but I was there in 2019, Ryan, and it was still a horribly impoverished country. But we're cutting off fuel to try and get this leadership out. Get them the hell out of there because they won't leave. They won't have an election. They won't leave.
Why do you care about like who's in charge in Cuba? Who elected you to do that? It's such a bizarre. Like, there aren't enough problems in the United States here for you to worry about. Like,
And that's like the big nail on the head here, because it's like one thing he's saying is like, well, they won't leave. Why wouldn't they? It's like, why do you give a fuck? There's so many brutal regimes that are happening in countries in Africa, in the Middle East, ones that we support, in Syria. Why do you care who's running Cuba? They haven't posed a threat to us since the Cuban Missile Crisis. And like, you could argue then, yeah, like that obviously was during the height of the Cold War and the scariest time to be in America. But why did the Cuban Missile Crisis happen? Because Eisenhower put embargoes on Cuba. So they had to what? Ally with the Soviet Union. And yes, they were communist beforehand, but they gave them no other option than to just ally with them. So what do you think happened? They allied with them. So we forced the Cuban Missile Crisis to happen through embargoes. Like, it's just anyone with a brain can put that together. So of course, when you continue the embargoes, what does it do? It doesn't weaken the regime. It strengthens the regime's power because everyone now is malnourished with no food, power, anything. And if you think like a bunch of malnourished people can just overthrow a government that has the monopoly on violence, that has everything they need to survive because they get it all first, they get the food, they get everything. You got to remember, like in this communist regime, Cuba, like you can't even grow your own food in Cuba. All your food that is grown goes to the government and then they divvy it out. That's what communism is. So like, just off of that, if you think those malnourished people who aren't going to be fed when the government gets all the things they need first are going to be able to rise up and take their government, you're stupid. That's why it hasn't worked in 80 years. Like, it's never going to work.
That's another side of it.
Really, like, I can't even get my mind to a place where I would think it's my call. Like, who runs Cuba? Who runs Haiti? Who runs Mexico? Who runs Iraq? Who runs Iran? Like,
that's a
who
fair
runs Israel?
That's a fair criticism. That's a fair criticism.
Why
But
do
I
you
mean,
care?
do you think it's better for? Do you want this regime to continue to run this country against the wishes of the people
It's not
that
up
are
to
all
me.
impoverished?
It's not up to me. I live
Okay.
in Washington, D.C. I vote in Washington, D.C. elections, and I vote in federal elections.
No, exactly the point though. Like you said, it's not up to me. It's not up to us. It shouldn't be. If we didn't collectively punish the Cuban people, they might actually have a chance to change their government. But because we continue with these embargoes and we continue to just malnourish and collectively punish all of these people, they don't even have a chance to overthrow their government. They really don't. They have no chance. And anybody listening to the Cuban exile community in Florida for like the reason why we should overthrow their government, it's like those people don't live there. They left. Like, it's the same thing with people in Iran, like in people who are sticking up for the Iranian regime that don't live in Iran. It's like the one woman who's been going viral for dancing to the YMCA video and then posted about how her cousin died from Israeli U.S. bombs in the war, but it was the Iranian regime's fault, not U.S. or Israel, for just indiscriminately bombing civilians. It was Iranian regime's fault for forcing Israel to bomb them. Like, that's the mental gymnastics these people have to do. They don't live there. They don't have any stake in the country of what they're saying. And honestly, like be real. You think any of those people in Florida, if Cuba's finally just like wasn't communist anymore, they're going to move back to Cuba? No, they're not going to move back to fucking Cuba. They're going to stay in America, dude. So like, you have no stake in the game. I don't care about, like, nobody should care about what those people are saying, honestly. Like, they should not be forcing our government to go deal with another government. Like, if you really have an issue, go make a difference in Cuba and get your people to do it too. And if you really care about Cubans, then get America to drop the embargoes so like they can just die out on their own and the Cuban people aren't just, collectively punished, and actively open the market so we can do business with everybody there. Like, it's stupid.
Where do you live?
You live in Hawaii, yeah. That's fair.
Where do you live?
I live in New York. And it's not.
Why should you vote? Why should you? Like, what do you have to do with Cuba?
Well, I think the prosperity of that country that's only 90 miles away from our border can't be a bad thing. And I'm just saying, what I'm asking you is,
then why not let them import oil?
It's fine. It's not America first. Let's put it there. But do you think that regime should be running the country?
Why does it bother you?
And like, I kind of just wanted to go through that little bit of clip, little bit of rest, just to show Ryan Grimm is just destroying him. I mean, again, it's like he'll give him everything and be like, yeah, like, why do you care? He's like, oh, I don't know. Wouldn't you rather it not be ran by communists? It's like, yeah, again, but like, why do you care? Like, why, it's not your country, dude. Anybody who's arguing for a foreign country and intervention in a foreign country when they have no actual threat to us is what's wrong with this country. It's the reason why we're $39 trillion in debt. It's the reason why everyone has this mindset that we can just be the global police. And it's the reason why everyone has this crazy altruistic mindset of they just know what's best for the world and all the world needs democracy. And if we got to go around the world and drop freedom bombs on them before they drop communist bombs on us, it's gross. We're at that point where I think people are starting to wake up to it. You have a lot of like a lot of the pro-war people are just decades older than me, to be honest. Like, if I'm really like looking out at who's supporting this war and who I'm having conversations with about this war, it's only people decades and decades and decades older than me that are just so used to being in war that it's nothing to them. They're not the ones that are in draft age anymore, so they're not really worried about it anymore. So who cares? Like, as soon as you get out of draft age, everyone's mindset is different. Well, I guess war isn't that bad, huh? So I don't have to go fight in it. And as long as you don't have a kid that's in draft age, when you really look at like who's against the war, it's everybody my age and below is just not for any of these wars. We're smarter. We have access to information. We can go and use the internet to just figure out the full history of a country before we even decide if we want to go to war with them. Now, so much easier than we could back then. And people are actually doing it and actually waking up to the information. So it is a good thing. So I think like this might be the last neocon presidency. I think everyone moving forward is going to really focus on who has undying support for Israel, who doesn't, who's getting PAC money, who's not, who's going to take us to war and who's not. And I'm hoping 2028 is going to be a real big one. So I want to end with this 1-minute video from Iran. And this is just, just to point out some of the propaganda that you've been being fed.
What's amazing, guys, is I have walked this entire rally in the middle of Iran without a hijab on. And I know what loads of you are thinking. You're thinking, how is she in the middle of Tehran at that square without her scarf on? Nothing has happened to me. Nobody has abused me. Nobody has said anything. In fact, when you are a visitor in Iran, they treat you so well, even me, without a hijab. But it's the fact that I have come here, I have been welcomed, and nobody has said a single thing to me about my hair being uncovered.
And that's like that's like one of the things that I've been trying to point out is like, not every single country in Iran is under Sharia law. Iran's huge, 90 million people, multiple cities, you know what I mean? So not even a city inside of the country. Tehran doesn't even have Sharia law. Like you do not have to walk around Tehran with a burqa on it. That's like, even if you're a citizen. Now she's obviously a visitor, and they're nice to visitors. It's just such a misconception. It's like you always hear that, oh, everyone has to wear burqas, all this, everyone's oppressed, and like there are certain people that are oppressed, and yeah, it does happen. It's a brutal regime in certain parts of the country for sure. There's cities that are horrible, but saying that the entire country is under Sharia law and the entire country is just all these repressed people is just false. It's not true. It's a very intelligent people. They have lots of universities, and they are educated. They do not all have to cover up everything. That's just a misconception. I always hear people say like they hate their anti-Semitic regime. They hate all Jews. It's in their constitution to kill all Jews. Like I heard somebody say that before in Pierce Morgan, and that's also not true. There is a Jewish community and Jewish people that live inside of Iran currently. If that was true, the Jewish population in Iran would be zero. Like, yeah, it's like 2%, but it would just be zero. Like, it's just, they wouldn't let them live there, So that's our geopolitical roundup this week. We have a episode coming out this Wednesday. It is going to be on what's been going on in Lebanon. That's going to be a good one. It just kind of goes into what's been happening today, how we got there. I go into the history of it, Beirut bombing, creation of Hezbollah. We kind of go into all of it to give everyone the full background, because if you don't understand the full story of everything that happened, then it's hard to really get a grasp of what's going on there. So should be an interesting episode. I just want to end it by playing a clip from Dave Smith, who was on Joe Rogan, and he is talking about something I think is very, very important, and that's the re-election of Thomas Massie. So going on right now is the Massie money bomb. I donated myself. I hope everyone else can donate. Let's see what we can do here. We are going to share this tab. So this is MassieMoneyBomb.com. As you can see, everyone in America is getting behind Thomas Massie. He's one of the only actual defenders in the Congress of the Constitution. And I'm hoping if he has such a huge success with his reelection here, he can consider a presidential bid, or maybe even hopping on like a Rand Paul, Thomas Massie ticket. Could be insane. So let's get into this clip with Dave Smith before we end it.
Even though Donald Trump has shattered his coalition by lying us into this stupid war on behalf of a foreign country, that coalition is still ripe for someone else to pick it up and run with it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I'm hoping. I hope Thomas Massie runs for president. I think, by the way, they're doing a big money bomb for Thomas Massie on March 30th. And I think him winning re-election in Congress is like the most important political election in the country right now, because he's done nothing wrong except actually stand up for America first and for all the stuff that Donald Trump and Tulsi Gabbard and all these people ran on. And he's gotten the Israel lobby and the Adelsons, but I repeat myself, have been pouring millions of dollars into his race to try to unseat him for the crime of not going along with the Epstein cover-up and not going along with another stupid war and having some like fiscal sanity. So I hope he wins.
Imagine those being
runs
three
for president.
negatives. Imagine those being three negatives that people are saying he's not MAGA.
Yeah. Well, then, okay.
What is MAGA then?
Well, if that's like, I don't know, like my position is always like, if you're saying, if not supporting covering up the Epstein files or not supporting a stupid war of choice, a war of aggression on behalf of Israel means I'm not MAGA, then okay, I'm not MAGA. I'm not attached to the phrase "Make America Great Again." I don't care.
And I think he's exactly 100% right there. Like, we're not attached. I mean, I wasn't part of MAGA, but don't be attached to that stupid phrase, "Make America Great Again." You know, it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. We're talking about being America first and actually putting the country ahead of everyone else. And Thomas Massie has been one of the only people in Congress, if not the only person in Congress these past couple years to do it. So please, everyone, he's already close to hitting his goal within the first couple hours of starting. I'm so excited for that. Let's go to MassieMoneyBomb.com and show your support for the true liberty candidate that's out there. So I think this is really important. This is the most consequential race in 2026, and this will ultimately decide what happens in 2028, in my opinion. Because if people think that everyone's blindly just going to go Vance or Rubio because we don't want another Democrat, they're definitely wrong. So thank you all for watching this live episode. Able to get a little bit of update in. We'll probably do another one next week. I usually try to get them on Sundays, but I think because of this ultimatum he gave and the timeline that it's going to end up in, it might not be till Monday or maybe even Tuesday. So we'll see what's going on. I appreciate everyone coming in. Thank you so much, and have a good day.